Greetings, metaphysicians. This is episode 157, Clear Knowing. And this is an episode all about one of the clairs, but not clairvoyance, not clairsentience. We're talking about claircognizance, clear knowing. So sit back and enjoy the episode.
You're listening to Let's Get Metaphysical. This podcast explores the spiritual and metaphysical world through the experiences and opinions of the host and those interviewed. It should not necessarily be seen as direct endorsement or personal advice to our listeners. We encourage you to use your own discernment, judgment, and intuition regarding anything you learn from this show.
Let's get meta.
Welcome to the Let's Get Metaphysical podcast. I'm your host, Renata Maniaci. Here to remind you that you are an ensouled spiritual being having a temporary human experience here on lovely planet Earth. This is Season 7, Heaven on Earth, and this is episode 157, Clear Knowing. And today we're going to get into talking about the clairs, but specifically claircognizance. So let's jump right in. Are you ready? Let's get meta. Masters and angels, I request your presence, guidance, and support through this episode. Please help these words to be useful to all listeners on their evolutionary journey. Let me know the truth, speak the truth, become the truth, and be the truth. And please let this episode reach whoever needs to hear it. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. Bless creation. What dropped in for today is this idea of knowing. And it's not so much an idea as an actual faculty and function that we as humans have, some more than others. And I thought I'd start this episode by just a little summary of the clairs. And what do I mean by clairs? I mean the clairs: clairvoyant, clairaudience, clairsentience, these kinds of clairs. So these extrasensory abilities that I personally feel we all have access to, especially if we can, not, no pun intended, clear out our systems, our physical beings of things that don't need to be there and that clog us up and make it more difficult for us to access these abilities and faculties. So that's how I feel about that everyone actually does have access to probably all of these, and that they could actually be grown. These abilities could be developed in folks if they really wanted to. But for the purposes of this episode, we're going to focus on claircognizance once I get through what all of these kind of are. So most people have heard of clairvoyance. This means clear seeing. A clairvoyant is someone who can see things beyond the normal range of sight. Sometimes this involves visions, images, scenes from the past, present, or future, or events happening simultaneously in other places. Another clair is clairaudience. That means clear hearing. This is the ability to hear or perceive sounds and words from sources beyond the normal range of human hearing. Sometimes this means that these people can hear voices of spirits or messages or music or other sounds that are not audible to others. There's clairsentience, which is clear feeling. Clairsentients are individuals who can feel or sense the emotional or physical states of others, often without any verbal or physical cues, and this can also extend to feeling the energies of places, events, or even feeling other beings that are not physically able to be seen by other people. Two of the lesser known words are clairalliance and clairgustance. So clairalliance is clear smelling. This is the psychic ability to smell fragrances or odors of things that are not physically present and sometimes are associated with beings that we can't see or past events. Clairgustance is clear tasting. This refers to the ability to taste something without the physical substance being present and might include tastes associated with past or future events or from other entities or beings that are there, but again, not seen. And all of these clairs, those 5 that I just mentioned, those all are the extensions of the senses that we already know about and have, right? So sight, hearing, feeling, smelling, and tasting. Those are what we refer to as our 5 senses. And I have had experiences either directly myself or witnessing somebody having all 5 of these. Maybe not the same person with all 5, but I have had enough experiences, especially through when I used to have my energy medicine practice, either working with other practitioners and their abilities, or even with clients who are on the table experiencing various forms of these. So for these 5, out of these 5, I have always had a clairsentience or clairsentience. This is clear feeling. So some people might call this being empathic. And on some level, this is that word, but it actually can mean more. But it's that clear feeling of feeling people's emotional or physical states or other states that of beings or entities that might be in a space that you don't necessarily see with your eyes. And again, I feel like many, if not all humans, have the ability to feel these things or to experience these things, maybe in moments. And I would also say that I have fairly clear hearing, that word clairaudience, and that's probably just honed because of talking to my angels all the time. So you might have one or more of these or know people who have one or more of these. I am not clairvoyant. I don't see things with my eyes, with my own human eyes, that are beyond the scope of what the average range of humans sees. But I know people who do see beyond that, who do see angels or darker beings or other kind of things or auras around things that the majority of humans at this time don't see. I had someone, another practitioner, another energy practitioner several years ago, tell me that they were smelling, they could smell certain things when they were working with their clients, just things that absolutely shouldn't be there. The baking of blueberry muffins or something like that, that actually, if she said that out loud, would relate to what something their client was experiencing or remembering at that time. And I've even had a friend who's able to have clear tasting. And this person also worked on other people in an energetic capacity and could taste things like that we normally wouldn't say that we would put taste to. So like, this tastes like diabetes, or this tastes like this type of cancer, for example. I've never had those experiences myself, but I've seen people that I know and trust have those. So those are also really interesting. And you hear about those two less often, but all really interesting. But the thing I want to focus on today is this 6th clair that is often talked about. And if you do a Google search or an AI now that we're all doing that search for the clairs, you might find some other ones that come in as well. But often when we're talking about the clairs, this 6th one is always there. And that's the one that I'm focusing on today. And that is claircognizance, clear knowing. This is an ability that involves knowing things without understanding how or why you know them. Information just appears in the mind or without any other sensory input, often as a sudden understanding or a realization. And once again, maybe everyone on the planet has felt this at some point. But this is one that always captured my interest because since I came in and incarnated into this body and lifetime, as young as I can remember, there are things that I just knew came in knowing things about my own life and how it would go. Not everything, very little actually. But there were some very solid things that I just knew, and I knew them without knowing how I knew them. And those of you listening, I'm just sensing that a high percentage of you have also experienced this and know what I'm talking about. But it's this knowing that I wanted to dig into a little bit more today. Because why? Because it is a really beautiful way to move forward, especially in these uncertain, cloudy, foggy, misinformation, disinformation, every which media and content site and person of interest trying to get you to believe this or that or X, Y, or Z. And this is across the spectrum on anything. Claircognizance, this clear knowing, could be a huge tool for us to move forward with as a humanity, as a civilization on this planet. How do we hone that? Can we bring up any experiences that we've had where this has been apparent? Are there things that you can think about right now in your life? Maybe things that are specific to you, maybe things that are specific to your families or this planet, the laws of nature on this planet, or even greater than that, even beyond this planet, even reaching into the universe, the galaxies, and even higher than that, the creator, the maker, whatever that is. So many people just know that there is a creator, and however you want to say that is fine. Creator, maker, God, great spirit, whatever, any of those names that you would use for that experience, that source. But that is a faculty. This knowing is an actual ability. It's a faculty within us that is part of our spiritual structures. Now, we never talk about our spiritual structures because they're not being paid much mind. Nobody talks about that. We know about the physical body and all the organs and all the things that make it up, but we have just as complex, if not more complex spiritual structures, actual spiritual structures that make up our physical bodies, our mental and emotional bodies, and our spiritual structures that continue on after the physical body is done for this lifetime. Now, it is in these spiritual structures that these clairs exist and are in fact real, maybe not tangible to us or visible to our eyes or our other 5 physical senses that we talk about, but it doesn't mean that they're not there. And similarly, this knowing, when you get this knowing, this claircognizance about anything, whether it's about your own life or something outside of you, or the truth about a person, or the truth about a situation, or the truth about the universe, for example, you just know. And this knowing goes beyond belief. Belief and knowing are not the same. These are 2 different things. They have different frequencies. They have different apparatus. They are different. Believing in the Creator and knowing the Creator are different things. Believing that 1 + 1 = 2 and knowing that 1 + 1 = 2 are 2 different things. Do you see what I mean? These are not the same, and they get conflated too much in our systems because we don't recognize this clear knowing as an actual function, a faculty, an ability that we all have and have access to and probably can develop. And as I said earlier, it's not a mistake that the word clear is what we're talking about here, because when I mentioned before that we need to be clear to be able to use these, I believe that that is true. That's a belief, right? The clearer we are, the more we will be able to use these extrasensory abilities. So knowing is different than believing. And on this show, I talk about truth a lot. I mention it every time I do my prayer request to start the episode. To know the truth, speak the truth, become the truth, and be the truth, right? So what is that? This faculty of knowing, this clear knowing. If you understand, if you feel this, if you've experienced this in any given situation, it's like you will see something or hear something and just absolutely know without a doubt that it is true. And so I feel the first time that I've experienced that, I've just known certain things about my life, like I said, since I was a child, just known without knowing why. Absolutely clear on certain things without knowing why. Now, I didn't know these words. That was just normal. It was just something, and nobody ever talked about it. We don't talk about these senses. We don't talk about claircognizance or these other things in school. We don't learn about them. You really have to be interested and do your own research around these things, because this isn't something that you would come across in a normal human upbringing on this planet right now, which is just what it is. So I didn't even learn these words until much later, and probably in my mid to late 20s. But claircognizance has come in a lot more in the last decade for me, because it so happens that when I started to hear truths, and I'm not talking about things that you learn in math class or in anthropology or whatever you've studied necessarily, because a lot of that isn't truth. It isn't divine truth. It's somebody's findings. It's somebody's opinion. It may contribute to an overall body of knowledge on certain topics. When you're clear enough to receive information, when clear knowing really started to make waves in my life, is when I would hear something about someone or a situation that was not something that I was ready to hear, not something that I wanted to hear, not something that made me feel good or comfortable about that person or that situation, but yet that feeling of knowing took over so much that I knew that what I was hearing, no matter how much I did not like it or how inconvenient it was, I knew that that was true. Do you guys know what I mean by this? This is when you have somebody, maybe a celebrity or a politician or a musician, or even somebody in your life who you loved, and this happened with me recently. Somebody that you think is one way, and you hear something, and maybe what you hear is so out there, it just doesn't actually make sense to your mind, but there's somewhere in you that you absolutely know that that is true. Clear knowing. And I'm bringing this up because this can happen for good, positive things. For example, you just know that there's a creator. Nobody can convince you that they're not. It's not a belief. There's no belief. Belief and knowing are not the same. You know there's a maker. You know there's a creator. You know there's source. That is a knowing, and it's positive, right? Now, the reason I'm bringing up the other side of this is because that is also a faculty of this clear knowing. When you hear something about someone you love or someone you once held up or as, a positive being in your life or in the lives of others, or even a situation or an organization or a government or a branch of the government or whatever. Anything in your life, maybe your workplace, maybe those who run your workplace, maybe this colleague of yours, whatever. When you hear something that is unsavory about that person or situation or event or organization or whatever, but you know on a very deep level that it is true, even if it feels uncomfortable, your mind doesn't want to believe it, all of these things, that is also clear cognizance. And I'm highlighting that one now. Many of you can probably guess why. Because things are coming to light in our world, in our society now, that evoke this reaction, this clear knowing. You hear this thing about this product, perhaps, and you thought it was so great and that it was helping you, and you hear from someone or something or some whatever that actually it's poison and toxic. And you don't want to believe that. It doesn't feel comfortable or good to believe that, but somewhere inside you, you know that that is true. And you can't shake. You can't shake out of that. You know it. Same about a person. You've always loved this person. You love their music, for example, or whatever. And news comes out about this person and things that they have done. And you don't want to believe that. That's uncomfortable. It might be way more than uncomfortable, but you know on some level, this deep knowing, that that is true. So I'm bringing up this other aspect of deep knowing because it is proof that this is a faculty. And unfortunately, right now in our world, this might be the way that you interact with your clear cognizance more than the positive stuff, more than the I know that there's a creator, more than I know that this is going to happen in my life, more than I know that there is this situation that's coming in 10 years for me. I just know it. So more than these positive things, hopefully positive things, a way to hone your clear cognizance is also through these less than positive realizations that are coming to light around the world right now if we have eyes to see and ears to hear and frankly just are open and clear to this knowing. This is where we're at right now. This is part of why we incarnated, is this moment right now. We've talked about this. I had a episode several episodes ago now called Is This the Moment? Maybe it was 4 or 5. I don't know. I can't keep track. But we are going to keep hearing, if you, again, are open to it, if you're looking, things that are absolutely true. And you'll know on a deep level that they're true, even if they're not the most fun things to hear. And why am I bringing this up right now? Am I some kind of conspiracy theorist? Well, no, but when I started to do deeper dives into what's been going on in the world, all of those things that used to be conspiracy theories are actually coming out to be true a couple years later. So that's weird. But that's not what this episode is about. This episode is about you have a faculty of deep knowing and clear knowing, and we all have it. Some are more heightened than others, but it's to draw awareness to this really powerful ability and faculty that we all have and ways that we can hone it and open up more to it and not block it out. There are many on the planet right now who are blocking this clear knowing because the things that they are feeling within themselves and in their spiritual structures, whether they realize it or not, are not things that their mind wants to believe. They're not things that their egos want them to believe. They have been conditioned to believe other things. And so even though this deep knowing might sit like a pit at the bottom of their stomach, that they know that this thing is accurate, they don't want to open up to that. And that's why this is coming up today. Because if you're listening to this show, if you've listened to this show more than a couple of times and nobody's forcing you to listen to this, you probably care about the truth, whatever that is. The truth is neutral. The truth is not political. The truth is not left or right. The truth is the truth. The truth doesn't care about your feelings. So if you've been listening to this show for more than a couple, you are probably someone who cares about the truth. And so this deep knowing faculty, which we all have, this clear knowing, this claircognizant faculty that we all have available to us, this is a call to open up to that. And ways to do that is to become really physically clear in your body, get enough sleep, eat foods that are not poison and not toxic, eat and drink water that is not poison and not toxic, and keep your body clear of things that clog it up. Alcohol and drugs, lower vibration music, lower vibration content, visual content, movies, TV shows. I talk about this ad nauseum. I know that I do. But if you can keep yourself clear, all of this will come in. All of this, you are creating space for these natural abilities that you have to discern the reality that we are currently all a part of, and that we really probably only see 1% of the truth that is around us. Maybe more, maybe some are more than others, maybe not. But this episode does have bonus content today. We do a clearing on anything keeping you from your clear knowing, your own claircognizant abilities. So we clear anything that's getting in the way of that ability on the bonus content. And why is this important? I don't know. It's like, don't you want to understand the truth of your reality that you're living right now? I've talked a lot about this in recent episodes of how this is a play. This is a piece of theater, and your body is your costume and your role in this lifetime. And it is. But being more aware of the truth of your own reality, your soul, is important. And being as aware as we are allowed to be and capable of being about the truth of this play, the truth of this piece of theater as we can, that's going to help all of us, not just you and your family, but all of us. We have an agency that is not being used to create a world that works for everyone. And we can't do that without seeing what's actually happening. So if you want to enjoy that clearing, you can go to patreon.com/letsgetmeta. And you can join any tier to have access not only to this bonus content, but to every single bonus content I've ever done for this show. And you can stay as long or as short as you want. You can stay for a month or longer. The angel donors in this group are what keep this podcast going, this show going, which I'm super grateful for. But also, I am always wanting to empower you to do your own things and to better yourselves. So making a request for yourself to come into greater understanding and realizing of your own deep knowing, your clear knowing, requesting your teams to help you with that, that's awesome too. And I highly recommend it. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for listening. Stay positive, stay safe, and stay meta.
The Let's Get Metaphysical podcast is an Up and Awaken production and is produced and hosted by Renata Maniaci. Our intention is to raise the vibration of the planet by sharing, validating, and normalizing spiritual and metaphysical experiences. The Let's Get Meta podcast is inspired by angels and supported by angels. If you would like to be an angel donor to the podcast, visit patreon.com/letsgetmeta. Thank you for listening. Stay meta.
Let's get
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.